Greetings, YouTube. This is a video response to the Reb Shlomo and a recent video he made where Numbers chapter 25 was used to advocate the position that the God of Israel condoned human sacrifice. There are a few interesting curiosities in Numbers chapter 25. I'm going to read verses 1 through 9 and verses 16 through 18 of Numbers 25. While Israel was staying at Shittim, the people began to have sexual relations with the women of Moab. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. Thus Israel yoked itself to the Baal of Peor, and Yahweh's anger was kindled against Israel. Yahweh said to Moses, "Take all the chiefs of the people and impale them in the sun before Yahweh, in order that the fierce anger of Yahweh may turn away from Israel." And Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Each of you shall kill any of your people who have yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor." Just then one of the Israelites came and brought a Midianite woman into his family, in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the whole congregation of the Israelites, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he got up and left the congregation. Taking a spear in his hand, he went after the Israelite man into the tent, and pierced the two of them, the Israelite and the woman, through the belly. So the plague was stopped among the people of Israel. Nevertheless, those that died by the plague were 24,000. Yahweh said to Moses, "Harass the Midianites and defeat them, for they have harassed you by the trickery with which they deceived you in the affair of Peor, and in the affair of Cosbi, the daughter of a leader of Midian, their sister. She was killed on the day of the plague that resulted from Peor." Okay, a few things. First, verse 1 talks about Israelites having relations with women of Moab, whereas verse 6 talks about Israelites and Midianites. Verses 1 through 5 only refer to Moses, while in verse 7 we all of a sudden have a reference to Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest. Also, in verse 8, it mentions, "So the plague was stopped," where there was no plague mentioned previously in the passage. Also, verse 5 refers to the Baal of Peor, while verse 18 only refers to Peor. It doesn't call it the Baal of Peor. Why these seeming discrepancies? When I read this the first time several months ago, I just thought that it was a contradiction and didn't really think about it any further. But there's a pretty interesting explanation for what's going on. And that would be related to the documentary hypothesis for the construction of the Torah. And this is the idea that the Torah was not written entirely by Moses. In fact, it wasn't written by Moses at all. But it's rather composed of 4 main sources. Some information that I'm going to bring up in this video is from the book Who Wrote the Bible by Richard Elliott Friedman. Chapters 3 and 11 in particular have some pertinent information to this. Also, I would recommend The Bible with Sources Revealed, specifically the sections related to the evidence for the documentary hypothesis. This is also referred to by the acronym JEPD, which is a reference to the 4 different sources. A little bit of background on the various sources, and I'll get into the ones pertinent to this passage. The J is the Yahweh source, and it's named this because it uses the name Yahweh a lot. Yahweh in the J source is referred to as Yahweh from creation, and he's also worshipped as Yahweh shortly thereafter. E stands for Elohist, because this source uses the name Elohim to refer to God. And it's in E that Yahweh is first revealed as Yahweh to Moses. Before then, he's not known as Yahweh. Pertaining to this video and this passage, Friedman identifies the E source as a priest of Shiloh in the northern kingdom. And the reasons why he thinks this are interesting. The key passage to this is Exodus chapter 32, which refers to the heresy of the golden calf, where it talks about a plague which was the result of the calf which Aaron made. Why does Friedman think that the author of the E-source was a priest of Shiloh? A little bit of background information on who Friedman thinks is the author. Under David in the United Kingdom, he had two chief priests, Zadok and Abiathar. Abiathar was from the house of Eli in Shiloh. Now, there were two different sons of David competing for his throne, Solomon and Adonijah. Abiathar supported Adonijah, but Solomon ended up winning out. And because of this, he was expelled as chief priest and essentially replaced as the only priest by Zadok. Zadok is written as having descended from Aaron. So why is it Aaron who's responsible for the heresy of the golden calf? Because Aaron is seen as the historical figure responsible for the expulsion of their priesthood from the United Kingdom. Now, why a golden calf? Ahijah, who's a prophet of Shiloh, instigates a rebellion of Jeroboam against Solomon. Now, when Jeroboam gets his northern kingdom, he establishes religious centers at Dan and Bethel and institutes non-Levite priests. So he cuts out the descendants of Abiathar. Ahijah later prophesies against Jeroboam for doing this, and Jeroboam creates golden calves, which are used in the cultic practices at these religious centers. So that's why the golden calves are implicated in heresy. They're being polemicized against. After the collapse of the northern kingdom in 722 BCE, the Shiloh priests head downward, and Friedman proposes that sometime thereafter, the J source becomes combined with the E source to form a single JE narrative, and that the P source, the priestly source, is written as an alternative to the JE narrative. And some evidence for this is what he refers to as doublets, as stories appearing in the Torah more than one time, and differences between the story found in the JE narrative to what's found in the P narrative. For example, in P, Yahweh is still revealed as Yahweh to Moses, but there's no theophany of the burning bush. It's not there. Also, there are two different versions of Moses and a rock at a place called Meribah. And in the version in Exodus 17, Yahweh describes himself as standing on a rock, where that doesn't happen in the P version in Numbers 20. It tries to avoid these anthropomorphisms. Now, the reason why I bring up Meribah, though, is related to the next important feature of the P source, and that is the primacy of the descendants of Aaron. This is pretty clearly advocated in Numbers chapter 3, verses 5 through 10. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Bring the tribe of Levi near, and set them before Aaron the priest, so that they may assist him. They shall perform duties for him and for the whole congregation in front of the tent of meeting, doing service at the tabernacle. They shall be in charge of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, and attend to the duties for the Israelites as they do service at the tabernacle. You shall give the Levites to Aaron and his descendants. They are unreservedly given to him from among the Israelites. But you shall make a register of Aaron and his descendants. It is they who shall attend to the priesthood, and any outsider who comes near shall be put to death." This is in contrast to the D source, for example, which is responsible for the book of Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 1 through 2, for example, it says, "The Levitical priests, the whole tribe of Levi, shall have no allotment of inheritance within Israel. They may eat the sacrifices that are Yahweh's portion, but they shall have no inheritance among the other members of the community. Yahweh is their inheritance, as he promised them." There's no distinction between Levites and the descendants of Aaron in Deuteronomy. And because of the primacy of the descendants of Aaron, they really didn't appreciate the story of the golden calf and Aaron being responsible for it. So in the alternate version of the rock at Meribah, rather than striking the rock being a good thing, like in the Exodus version, it's seen as a negative thing. And in fact, it's the reason why Moses is kept out of the promised land. And also, as a result of that, Aaron doesn't enter the promised land either. So innocent Aaron being punished for something that Moses did. Also, now we get back to Numbers chapter 25. And Friedman proposes that verses 1 through 5 of Numbers 25, which refer to the Moabite women, are from the J source, while the rest of chapter 25 is from the P source. Why would the author of P change the Moabite women to Midianite women? Moses' wife was a Midianite. Yeah. It's that simple. And it's from that we end up with Numbers chapter 31, where the P writer has Moses say this. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Avenge the Israelites on the Midianites. Afterwards you shall be gathered to your people." So Moses said to the people, "Arm some of your number for the war, so that they may go against Midian to execute Yahweh's vengeance on Midian." Yeah, I think that the contradictions as a result of smushing these passages together are actually resolved by treating them as separate sources which have their own particular religious agendas.